Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with boudoir photographer and self-love enthusiast Emily Sacco. She has been a professional photographer for 10 plus years and has a commercial photography studio in Central Virginia. Her love for boudoir photography surpasses creating beautiful photos for her clients. She is passionate about teaching other photographers and sharing her love and techniques associated with self-love. Her mission in life is to uplift and connect women from all walks of life and backgrounds. These days, she is a wife, mother, and six-figure, five-star business owner that knows how to multitask without compromising on the client experience. Enjoy this interview.
Excellent. Thank you for taking a minute out for the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for your interest.
Yeah, you bet. So before we get into your work and your life that led up to this work, I want to know, how did you survive COVID? How did you get through the time period, the last 3 years? Because it all worked on us in different ways. How did you get through it, and how has it changed the way that you live your life and conduct business now?
Absolutely. This will probably be kind of a unique answer. During that time, I actually took time off to be a stay-at-home mom. So I have two kids. And one was born in 2018, and then my youngest was born in June 2020. So I had already taken a step back from my work, which I originally began professionally in 2012. So I had taken a step back, and I kind of got to watch everything unwind and had already made the decision to not be full-time in business anymore. So I kind of came back into it in 2021, so the summer after, which, I mean, by far we were still, in the COVID era. I mean, one could argue that we're still in the COVID era, but so I had already taken a step back, and then I honestly just ran my business kind of based off of my clients' preferences, and I already would only allow one person in my studio at a time. So there were precautions that were kind of already in place to protect like the privacy and the integrity of my clients. But as far as like masks go and things like that, I would kind of just base it off of my clients and what their needs and wants were. And then, I mean, as far as like protecting my business, I make everyone sign, a waiver for COVID. So like, they can't blame us if they get it here or anything like that. But is that sufficient? Is that what you were wondering? Okay.
Absolutely. And I know that there's a few things that kind of preoccupy your time business-wise. So let's simplify this. If you were to get in front of a bunch of grade school kids at a career day, and one of them looks up at you and asks you, what do you do for a living on a daily basis? How do you answer them?
Well, for a grade school child, this would be a different answer because being, a boudoir photographer where, this content may be not appropriate for a young child. I would tell them, right, and I'm not like an erotic photographer, which is very different. But I mean, I would say, I am a female portrait photographer, and I specialize in fine art portraiture. And I would kind of go from there. I would see if they even understood what that meant, probably.
So I'm curious, when you were in the third grade, when you were younger, what was your dream growing up? What did you want to become when you grew up?
Oh, I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a performer, and I was a singer for a long time. I was a dancer, was an actress. So I was very into the performing arts. And then, I didn't really have that support system, I think, which, now being a parent, I know my parents were just trying to protect me, and they weren't big dreamers. They wanted, to have a good job, settle down, have a family, the classic. And, photography was really presented to me in a way that once I recognized that I had really always been a photographer, like wanting to perform and wanting to be the center of attention, it's like I had to learn how to take pictures, and I had to learn how to, film myself and all of those things. And so I already had that knowledge, and then being able to like share it with other people was really beautiful and fun. So I didn't always want to be a photographer, but in hindsight, I always was a photographer.
So I love photography myself, and when it started for me, I watched my dad. He was into it, but we had in high school we had a lab, in a dark room and all of that.
Same.
So yeah, so was that kind of how did it kind of hatch and become something that, because for a lot of people, this is the thing about photography these days. Everyone has a camera on them, and it used to not be that way. Yeah. And then when people take photos, if they grab a good one out of 100, they think, oh, well, I'm a photographer. It's almost become a muddled kind of a thing. So I'm curious, when did you see it as something that you were good at? And then when did it become something that you took it seriously and really got into it as a craft?
Totally. So I, too, in high school, had the dark room. I took all of the classic classes about composition and all of, the building blocks, if you will, to photography, but still didn't really think a lot of it. And then I bought my first DSLR, which, once you're not shooting on film, you can take a lot more pictures, which is what you were just saying. I got my first DSLR right at the end of college. So I graduated from a 4-year university in 2012, and I got my first DSLR, and I just had, a couple friends, a couple coworkers, doing shoots here and there. And then I ended up having a friend who was getting married, and she didn't have a lot of money and was like, do you want to take my wedding pictures? And at first I was like, oh my God, I don't know. This is this is a lot. I don't know if I can do this. And then I did it. I loved it. I'm also really good with people. I was a communication major when I was in college, and have always been a social butterfly, really into making people feel good and look good. And so my photography career actually started in wedding photography. So I was a wedding photographer for 7 years, and I did boudoir during that time too. But after I shot my friend's wedding, it kind of just dominoed, and I was able to work with other people. And I think, as soon as there was enough interest, I was able to start charging money. And then that was really when, I was like, okay, I need to invest in my gear. I need to get my insurance. I need to get all of my business things straight. And so, yeah.
Wonderful. Who's been an inspiration for you in photography or in the arts and creativity that's inspired the way that you tackle your art?
Yeah, I'm very inspired by painting, by the classics, love Rembrandt, love Monet, and then even just Pablo Picasso, who's so famous, but just having, knowing the rules and then breaking the rules has been such an inspiration to all of my work. And I think really is what separates the people who, have a camera, take a good picture, are a photographer, and then people who can really use their gear, in manual to manipulate it the way that they want it to be, and to really see things for not only what they are, but for what they could be. But for me, it's really painting, very inspired by paintings. There's a modern painter that their name has escaped me, but I love painting. I love going to art museums.
So where are you located?
I am in a small town in Virginia. I'm right in the center of the state. So I'm about an hour from Richmond. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I didn't know what kind of museums you had and access, and I know that always can play a role in people's lives.
Yeah, so DC are the closest museums. Big
cool.
ones.
Yeah, for sure. So who's been a role model for you? Who's been kind of an inspiration for what you do and how you live your life?
Oh, interesting. And how I live my life. So not exactly pertaining to my work.
Yeah, kind of a hybrid, I would think. Yeah.
I am really inspired by so many people. When I think about mindset and things like that, which have been so important to me in evolving as not only an artist, photographer, but also just as a human and as a mom. it has to be Tony Robbins. Like, I love Tony Robbins. I love proteges of Tony Robbins. I'm trying to think. That's a really good question. I'm trying to think of names that I can just drop. I love books on mindset. So the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People is really fantastic. Right now I'm actually reading a book that's called Mind Powers by John Kehoe, and that's amazing. So I think anyone, any person who really puts themselves out there, goes all in, has done the introspection work, and is just really trying to live the most abundant and the most full life is so inspiring to me. And I think that I'm finding new people all the time.
So if you could meet one person alive right now and spend a little time with them and talk to them, who would it be? For
sure, Tony Robbins.
Nice. I didn't want to be presumptuous, but I had a feeling. All of us in our endeavors every day, we have motivations. They get us up, get us moving, get us to create. What is it for you? What is essentially the thing that motivates you to be who you are and do what you do?
The first thing that came to my mind is the concept that, time is not a renewable energy source. Our time is so precious. And I think so I'm 33, just to put in perspective. So, I'm young to some people, I'm old to other people, but I really am motivated by spending all of my time doing what I love to do. And I want to create this beautiful life for myself, for my husband, for my children, and for everyone around me. I want to be an inspiring force. And that's really where the motivation comes from. I just want to remember that my time is so precious and so valuable, and I want to just live it all. I don't want to waste the time that I have.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into your 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom that you've gained, the roads you've been down so far. What would you tell that young version?
Totally. I would say go all in. No matter what it is, no matter what kind of endeavor you're facing, go all in. Never look at things as a standpoint of what if this doesn't work? What if I've spent all this money and it's not going to be worth it? What if this? Go all in. People who are successful have way more failures than they have successes. And the reason they're successful is because they failed so much. So I would say go all in. The time is now. You're as old as you've ever been. You're as young as you're ever going to be. Go all in.
What's the best compliment you've ever gotten from your work?
Oh, interesting. What is the best compliment I've ever gotten? Far and wide, the telling things that anyone can say is, how I made them feel. And at the end of the day, the whole point of what I do, even before I was a boudoir photographer, when I was a wedding photographer, I just want people to feel good. I want to change the way that people experience photography, especially portrait photography and single person. A lot of people have never been photographed individually. That's a real thing. Or they got one senior portrait in the gym. That's the one thing that they had. So I think the most meaningful compliments to me are when someone can look at a picture that I took of them and say, wow, I cannot believe that's me. Thank you so much.
So of all the things that you've done up to this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I think the business that I have created. I've created this six-figure business really out of nothing, out of passion, out of belief in myself. And I've just never given up, and I feel like I'm just getting started. So right now I have the biggest studio that I've ever had, and it's 3 different rooms, but it only equates to about 700 square feet. So it's not even huge by any means, but I really started this with a credit card that had $1,000, and then in 18 months I've scaled it to a 6-figure business. So I think the business that I have right now, I am just so proud of, and I'm so excited to see where it's going to go.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, your family, your friends, clients, colleagues, but ultimately you live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I can tell you who I try to be, and my ultimate goal for myself is to be, someone who acts with integrity, someone who not only follows their dream, but tries to live in alignment in all aspects of my life. So I really, really strive to follow my heart, do what I want to do, set really high goals, and ultimately at the end of my life, I want to be able to look back and be really proud and really happy and really excited for who I am. So I think integrity, I think loving and, trying to honor and support myself and everyone around me.
So Emily, if anyone out there wants to learn more about you, see your photography, hire you, anything revolving around your world, where is the best place for them to go?
Absolutely. So I do have a website, of course, and that is emilysacco.com. My last name is Sacco, Sacco. And then on Instagram, Facebook, we have pages, and they're both at Emily Sacco Boudoir. And that would be the place to begin. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Emily. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate you.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.